Hillsong Creative Podcast, where we hear from creative experts, influencers, dreamers, and doers, what they've learned and what we can learn from their journey as we explore, respond, and create.
Hey, I'm Rich Langton. It's so great that you've joined us on the podcast today. Before we get into it, let me just tell you some exciting news. Next week, the Hillsong Creative Podcast will be live at Hillsong Conference. We're going to be on the Hillsong Conference backstage, doing some special interviews with some fun guests and a whole bunch of surprises. So if you want to join us, download the Hillsong Channel Now app and it'll be live. We've never done this before. It's exciting to me and I think you're really going to love it. I don't know about you, but I've had the People album on rotation for the last few weeks and I'm loving the album. We're singing the songs in church and it's just resonating in my spirit. As you know, we've had a number of the Hillsong United crew on the podcast over the time we've been doing it. The very first episode was with Taya back at episode number 1. And then episode number 20, we had JD talking all about confidence. That was a great episode. And then more recently on episode 42, we had JD and Taya on a fun episode talking about the People album and getting behind the scenes a little bit. But today we have Matt Crocker, who's one of our key worship leaders at Hillsong Church, but also a key part of Hillsong United. This is a great interview where he talks about his experience, what it's like to be on the road, what it's like to be a dad, and also what it's like to be a songwriter and a creative. So we'll jump into it and I'll talk to you again at the end. For the people at home, I guess they would probably know you from United, Hillsong United. Been traveling the world for a long time, leading worship and touring, all of that. Lots of albums. So they would have a picture of who you are in their mind. But who are you? Who are you to you? Who's Matt Crocker?
Who do I say I am?
Yeah.
Yeah, all those things obviously are part of who I am, what I do. I think I'm quite grounded. I enjoy life back home a lot. So when I am home, I love, obviously I've got a family, a wife and 2 kids. One of them's 3-4 months old. And so trying to juggle all that stuff, I want to do that stuff well, especially when I'm at home. So I'm a dad, or I try to be. I don't always nail it, but
you've got some kids.
Yeah. And I find I'm that sort of guy who loves being out in the garden and stuff. So I grew up with that. I don't know, my parents loved, well, at least they made me do stuff as well in the garden. Right. So I enjoy the real basic things of life, the things that kind of, I don't know, numb your mind to maybe what's going on, and it's an escape in a way. So I think I'm a simple person, but maybe complicated in other ways. But I love being creative. I love digging my heels into other things, not just music.
Yeah.
I really love architecture and houses and interior. I enjoy just being with my family and friends. So
I love it. One of my earliest memories of you and your family, it's not really you, but it's a fun story, is... And I don't remember the full details, but I remember your dad invented something, and he's therefore, I guess he's world famous for inventing something.
I don't know if he's world famous.
Let's say he is.
I could be making this story up. I'm pretty sure I've confirmed it with him. I grew up thinking that he invented the formula that they use for pourable custard. But it was for a university, whatever those bachelor of whatever degrees. So he got nothing for it because it was through the university, which means I got nothing for it.
So financially it didn't help at all, but it's a cool story. So when you go to the supermarket and you buy custard.
Dairy farmers, I guess, I don't know.
For your dessert.
Yep.
He made it so that it was pourable.
Yep.
I get it.
Yeah.
When I think of that story though with your dad and that sort of invention, I know it was actually a formula that he created, right?
Yeah.
Or an algorithm or something.
Yeah, something like that. Before computers were around.
Right. But what it makes me think of is actually, because your dad's pretty creative. He plays on our team. He's a musician. It makes me think of your heritage in creativity.
Yeah.
Growing up, did you live in a creative kind of environment?
I did in regards to, I can remember the stuff I do now, I'll get up early and go to rehearsals and whatever on a Sunday. I can remember waking up and Dad was either already gone or he was walking out the door with a guitar in his hand and his little amp or whatever he had. And he was doing the stuff I'm doing now, and he's still doing it, which is cool. It's actually really awesome to see some older guys still around because we need that experience and that history, I think. So I grew up in that, and my grandma is like extremely creative. She's a really good poet. She's a painter. She's an artist in many regards. She's a little bit older now, so she's still doing stuff. So I grew up with, I feel like that was not necessarily something I dived into with her, but it always influenced me. I would always kind of be down in our shed trying to paint or something. But I really, I loved drums growing up. I played the drums in different bands. And then when I was about 15, I got into songwriting. So that's where I decided at that moment, this is what I'm going to do, is write songs. I didn't know I was going to be doing it here because I grew up at Hillsong Church, CLC back in the day, HCLC. And we were at another church for like 3 or 4 years. And then I got involved back here because of a band competition that Channel V, it's like Australia's MTV. Now we actually have MTV. But it got me involved back in youth because Joel's band was in it. And in my band, like we both won the 2 things, the parts of it. So it got me involved back at church, and it got me into a world where songwriting was, what's the word? Not rampant, but you know what I mean? Like
it was happening.
It was happening. Yeah. People were writing. It was that time where like United was just kicking off. And so I found myself in this, I felt like God positioned me there, obviously, but I was drumming, but I was also in a position where they wanted to hear songs because they knew I was in a band and I was writing songs. So it's just funny looking back on your journey, and you can see God working in every step of it. So,
do you have a drum now?
Just in the studio,
right?
But I never get credited.
Is it something that you still like doing?
I love getting on the drums.
Yeah.
Very rarely am I on there. Like again, just in the studio. It's not like they're pressing record on me or anything.
Right.
But I think I'm pretty good. I used to be good. So it's not like, it is kind of like jumping back on a bike, but you definitely like, there's disciplines on drum. And I found drums really, I found it hard in this setting at church because you have to, in the band I was in, that was just, we were set, like that's what we did. Whereas here it's a lot more, you got to move, it's moving parts in an organism. So there's a lot of pressure on the drummer, I feel, more than anyone. I would rather be the guy standing at the front with that pressure on my shoulders, carrying it in a different way rather than be a drummer. Because there was something about it I just couldn't deal with that pressure.
Yeah, right.
So I remember I broke my leg and I had Rolf and Ray were calling me up after about 6 months being out of a cast, and they're like, when are you going to start drumming? And there was something in me that just didn't want to do it. But I also feel like that was another way of God guiding me towards singing and vocals because I was too scared to do that. So if I never stopped drumming, I don't think I would have started singing.
Yeah.
So
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting for people listening who might be worship leaders or just creative pastors thinking about the different pressures on their team, because you wouldn't think, I mean, I guess when you stop to think about it, you realize that a drummer is sort of, obviously they're carrying the whole...
We say they're the backbone and the glue.
Right.
And
but then you forget that in and out of transitions and the highs and lows, sort of the dynamic of a service, they're really... It's really obvious if they're not on it.
That's right. And if they make a mistake or if they end the song, it ends. So it's like, and it's not like anyone's up front worship leading getting super annoyed with you, but if you are the one guy who's kind of, for some reason, you're not focused or you just, I don't know, you really got to be, as a worship leader now, I know what it feels like to have everyone all on the same page and it's moving. And I always encourage people, I'm like, this is why we rehearse. We rehearse because then we can get off the train tracks. But rehearsal, let's figure out exactly what we're doing. But then we have a freedom within that to get out of that.
Yeah.
And so our guys are so good. They've gotten so good at that over time, especially here at home. Like they know that if they're feeling something, they'll go with it. But if it's not going the right way, it's just like us as worship leaders. If Brian's up on stage, he's trusting us to step into it. But if he's not wanting it to go somewhere, he'll just come up and kind of take over. And it's very, it's natural now. It's not it probably was back in the day, but for me, younger me, it was more like you're on edge the whole time. So.
Yeah. And you want to do a good job.
Yeah.
You want to make sure it's great, all of that. And just maybe, like you say, the experience plays a lot into that. But I think maybe personality too. Yeah. Sometimes we want to be, you might want to be the upfront leader and you're just not the personality for that. Or in this instance, you might want to be you might play drums, but you don't have the confidence or the maturity to actually do that within a Sunday morning or Sunday night setting. I think that's really interesting to even contemplate for our own involvement in our teams. Yeah.
It was definitely a foundation for me as a drummer for worship leading. And I feel like, you know, when like everyone's telling you like put your kids on a piano first when they're growing up, which would have been beneficial to me massively. But like I thank God that drums was that was what I did. Yeah. Because I actually feel like it was no accident because there's a confidence in that and a boldness and this like kind of energy that you have to have as a drummer that if you can do that worship leading, you've got this extra kind of, I don't know, I'm not an aggressive worship leader, but it definitely gives you that boldness and confidence that you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, if you've been the guy that stands out like a sore thumb when you make a mistake and you've got that and you take that into your worship leading, then it's less obvious when you make a mistake or you know, it's less obvious in general, but you can be bold, you can be confident. Yeah. So then did you pick up drums? Like, was it just something you started hitting stuff around the house or did your parents encourage you in that or how did that?
It's just something I loved. And it was probably growing up in church, to be honest. Like, just like, I don't know, so many young guys like hitting things. Yeah. So I used to pull out pots and pans at home. Yeah. And I was like 3 or 4. And Dad would have John Farnham playing or something in the background.
Google John Farnham if you don't know who that is.
You're the voice. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
But I had a pair of drumsticks. They're like these brown, like really kind of old school brownie, like with a really round tip and they're quite thick. And I think they were my grandpa's and somehow they ended up at our house. And so I used to always use them, hit the ground with them and stuff. I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. But that led to my parents just kind of catching on to, maybe he wants to play the drums. Because I didn't even speak proper English till I was 6 years old. Okay. So them understanding me was like, I was cryptic on its own. Right. So they were ready to put me into speech therapy. So it's funny that I write songs now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And that you sing and speak in front of people.
So that led to them getting me like a little drum pad and then lessons at school. And then I decided I wanted to play basketball. So instead of doing drum lessons, I was going to play basketball. That never happened. So then I was somehow 2 or 3 years later, I was like, I want to play guitar. That never happened. And then I just got into drums because my friend had a drum kit. And it just seemed like something natural to me. I figured it out pretty quick. And then from there, I joined my cousin's band. And that's where I kind of really grew as a musician. Yeah. I got a lot to thank him for. He's over at C3. And went from there.
So then the whole songwriting thing came along because the environment here, once you got back back to Hills.
Yeah, kind of. It was in that band, it was the same group of guys, but we all kept, one of the guys was Dan Crocker at C3. He kind of heads up all their music. So he was our singer. And I remember I was doing like pop punk music. So like Blink-182 and stuff like that. And that was life. That's all we cared about. And so I was playing this style of music and I was getting influenced by the same time by Mikey Chislett, who is now, he was dating my sister at the time and he's married to her now. And so he was always like, here's some music, here's the Beatles, here's whoever. And so I just forced myself to, I was like, I want to be, it was just another one of those instances where it was something in me wanting to expand as a musician. Yeah. And so I got really influenced by other music and I realized this was a genre that's probably finding the end of its
lifespan or coolness.
Like it might come back again, but it was definitely heading that way. There was new stuff happening. So I was like, I'm young. I want to do music for life. So how do I do that? And so I was talking with someone else and she was like, well, if you don't want to do this music, start writing it. Like start influencing it. So I got into the arranging side of things and then writing. And then I was back here at youth because of that band competition. I had friends here and that led to me, like I knew Joel already. And so he was like, have you got songs? Show me some songs. And they would have been so bad. Yeah. And I was so nervous because I didn't like singing, but I'd do it. And my hat's off to him, Marty and Ruben, like those guys sitting through me being really awkward and that. But that's like, they're just like, that's how amazing they are at like bringing people through. That they would spend the time with me and realize there is something in this guy.
Right. So then take us back there. So you'd sit at home, perhaps in your bedroom with the guitar at this point. Yeah. And just...
When I was 15, I decided that's what I was going to do. Yeah. But then when I was about 16, 17, there's this thing that came out. It was like an 8-track that was digital and it had like a CD. You could put it in it and you could burn things onto it. And then Mikey had one. And so to me, I was like, if I can get one of those, that's going to change my whole life.
Right.
And it actually did. Like it allowed me to record things. I could hear my voice. I could hear that I sound like I had a lisp.
Okay.
My voice was quite like timid, and it was that time of life where my body's changing and stuff. So, you know, your voice changes.
Right.
And things like that. So it was real practical, but it also allowed me to write music and create music and edit. And so over the last couple of years, I've realized I have to get back to that place with writing where it's not just voice memos, but it's actually me creating music.
Right.
And then it allows my melodies and whatever to come and wrap itself around that.
Yeah.
So that was a game changer for me. That's when I was like, this is what I'm doing. So I was like, once I'm done with school, I'm moving to LA. This is what I'm doing, writing music.
Yeah, right.
But again, I was just hooked in here, and God just took me.
I want to explore that more, but first, the songwriting thing. How did you get the confidence to show them? Like you said, you were sort of pretty shy to show them, but was it because they were pressing you for it? Like you said, Joel's asking you for songs, or was it the drumming thing brought, you had some confidence from that, or what made you feel like anything you wrote was actually...
I think having a relationship with them first, or a friendship, that definitely helped. But I was still so nervous.
Yeah.
Like I was probably sweating sitting there on the staircase down there in the basement.
Right.
And this is when like Joel and all those guys were still coming to youth.
Yeah.
So I don't remember if I was like, I've got songs, or they were asking me. I think they were asking me. So
yeah,
I was like, yeah, I'll show you some stuff. And then he's like, well, I'll just grab a guitar now and like show me.
So he kind of put you on the spot.
So I did it, and there's kids walking like going up the stairs while we're sitting over in the corner. And I'm like, oh man, everyone's like here.
Yeah.
I talked about Mia Fields, and she's over in Nashville now, and she's writing incredible songs for many different people. She was here, and she prophesied over me at a camp, which 3 people did. They all said pen to paper. And so for me, that was like, okay, go time. Like start trying to write like all the time. So that's what I did. And she took me under her wing and got me confident enough to sing in a setting where it was, I'm co-writing with someone, because you got to be vulnerable. That's what she said. She's like, it's one of the most vulnerable things you're ever going to do. Pour your heart out in front of someone and show them something that you've been working on. But if this is what you want to do as a songwriter, then you got to get past that and be comfortable with it. So
Sounded like you did a bit of sort of self-assessment as well along the process, listening to your voice on the recordings, hearing that, and then trying to get better.
Yeah, I remember I used to do these things for like, well, I've got no like depth to my voice. I sounded really like high pitched, which I can still kind of get higher there, but I think now there's a little bit more meat to me. I don't know if it helped, but I just figured if I sang in the car always an octave under, it would strengthen my low range.
Okay.
So I did that for like 3 or so months. I don't know. I think time's just been helpful for me, like learning how to sing. So, and like you hear yourself back all the time. I used to hate hearing myself talk, whereas it doesn't bother me anymore. I think everyone's like that though, right? Because you're like, is that what I sound like? It's like, wow.
Yeah. You realize that your hearing is what other people hear all the time. That's a bit of
not what you've been hearing.
No,
not at all.
That's confronting, particularly on the podcast or places like that. So then those early songs, did they go anywhere, or was there any?
So, I mean, there was one thing I was involved with before I even left school, and it was more of just a musical thing. And Chislet and me kind of did it, I think. That was just like an intro to something. I don't know what happened with it. But the first album I was involved with, which I'd kind of shown them songs for a year or two before, was Look to You.
Yep.
And that had What the World Will Never Take. And that was a case of like, I came up with a bunch of stuff, but it was really like Marty was involved at that point, and he kind of took the thing and made it what it was. And it definitely had ideas in there and sounds and stuff that were mine. But in his genius, he took it all and made it a song. And so being in those situations time and time again helped me learn how to write.
Yeah.
And so then the first song that I did for an album that was actually something that was the next album was Fly Fall Down. That was just something I wrote in my bedroom and I was laboring over for months and months. not really knowing it was going to be on an album or anything. But I remember showing Joel just the chorus, and it didn't even have all the lyrics, but he loved it. And he's like, keep working on it. And so, yeah, it just, I don't know. It just worked.
Happened.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll get back into it in just a minute, but I wanted to let you know that Hillsong Conference is just a few short days away. And if you haven't registered yet, it's not too late. We'd love to see you there. Come and be a part of it. Hillsong Conference is our premier conference that happens every year in July, and it's for everyone, for creatives, for leaders, for pastors, for everyone. We've got some really specific masterclasses for creativity and creatives, for running creative teams. And I think you'll find they help your leadership and your creative team move forward. Personally, Hillsong Conference for me over the years has been a real time of growth and an injection of inspiration, and really helps me move forward in my own personal life and leadership. So if you're out there and you're considering coming, let me encourage you to register now and be a part of it. You can get more information at hillsongconference.com. Register today, and don't be a stranger. Come say hi if you're there. Let's jump straight back into it.
Hi, I'm Matt Crocker, and this is my Fantastic Four. A job I would be terrible at is organising people's lives, because I'm terrible at organising my own. The last book I read was an audiobook about marriage. I can't remember the name of it. Great book. I'm currently listening to Nothing and Everything. I kind of flick through stuff and trying to find something new, and then I always sometimes revert to the old stuff. I was listening to Led Zeppelin yesterday. My favourite cuisine would probably have to be pizza. I used to love thick crusts. Now I'm all about as thin as you can get the thing.
I guess by now in the timeline of things, you've finished school, you know you want to be a songwriter, you're starting to write with Joel and Marty and the United crew. Did you have any sort of fear about the future, or what, like how you're going to support yourself, or what a job might look like?
Because I still thought I was just going to move overseas and just risk it all and do it.
And that you were cool with that?
I've just always had this confidence, which I'm finding the older you get, the more your confidence gets stolen. Mm-hmm. So when you're young and you're in a youth group like ours, confidence is just pumped into you, and it's a great thing. Like it makes you feel like you can conquer anything, and which we should be able to, and in faith step out and do new things. And so I just was always like, well, this is what I'm doing. And I was definitely, as a younger guy, I remember waking up, Dad would be reading his Bible every morning, and that affected me in a way where I was like, well, maybe I should start reading my Bible. So when I was about 14, I started reading. Maybe even a little bit younger, but I remember that just was life. Mm-hmm. And so I just always felt, from a heritage of even my grandparents and their parents, it's just this, I grew up in a world of knowing and loving Jesus. I just had this confidence that was godly, I think. It wasn't cocky or anything. It was just like, this is what I'm going to do. And I feel like this is where I just feel lucky that I knew what I felt like I was called to at a young age. Yeah. When I had all the time in the world to do this thing, to spend time working out the process and becoming a songwriter, because I know the older you get, time and life just slips away from you into different things. So I did all the hard yards when I was younger.
Yeah. I, as you know, but people listening, I grew up with Reuben Morgan, and when we were teenagers, he did the same thing that you're describing. He set aside time to, I guess, first practice his craft, learn how to play guitar and play it super well. Yeah. He did that, like he would dedicate time to it. But then I watched him become a writer and then just focus on it and stick at it. Yeah. I've often looked back on our different pathways of life and realized that I can do lots of things, not super well, but I can do them. And part of that is because I didn't stick at any one thing.
Yeah.
And I think that advice that you're giving, or that, you know, your experience that you're telling about, is important, because often people aspire to something, but they're not willing to just commit to that one thing.
Yeah.
Because when you commit to that one thing, it means you're cutting off other things.
Yeah.
It means you can't do everything. You have to do that one thing and do that well. And then that can feel like you're missing out on life because you've committed to that one thing. But then other people look at you and go, wow, I wish I could do that like they do it. But they can't because they never put in the effort.
I remember looking for opportunities to sacrifice in ways of, like, all my friends would go to parties. And again, I was this kid that grew up in a world of youth and having my own relationship with God at a young age. So I was going to these parties, but I wasn't necessarily doing what most other kids my age would have been doing at these parties. But I still wanted to be there with my friends, hanging out or going out to go skateboarding or whatever. But for me, I would look for those opportunities to be like, I'm going to stay at home and write.
Yeah.
There's just something about knowing there's a sacrifice that goes, like, paying a price to actually get to where you envision yourself. And so I would do that. And there was a guy in the Red Hot Chili Peppers, John Frusciante.
Right.
My friend was really into the Red Hot Chili Peppers growing up, and he gave me, like, these CDs that this guy had done his own solo stuff, and I read more into him, and he got involved in the Chili Peppers because he just loved their music and he loved guitar, and so he used to spend 17 hours a day just playing guitar.
Wow.
This is probably the wrong age to decide to do that when I'm in school, but I was like, that's what I'm going to do. Every waking moment, every time I get to do it, I'm going to write and play guitar and learn how to do these things. And so I had a lot of free periods at school, like times where I didn't have to go to class. And so I'd literally go home because I had my license by then. So yeah, I just dedicated everything I had. I knew, like, academically, I did well when I decided to do well at school, but I also didn't do well because then I decided, well, I'm just going to do this.
Right.
And that's all my energy is going into that. So I was just inspired by weird situations and people who were inspiring, like John Frusciante, and most of you probably don't even know who that is, but yeah, I think anyone in this world who's doing something that is above themselves is because they've given their whole life to it. And
yes.
It can actually end sadly for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I think what is so amazing about what we do is we see why we do it. And it's obviously bigger than just ourselves. And this time in age, it's more than ever, people need the message we have. So.
Yeah, and I guess if you're going to give your life to something, dedicate everything to it, what better thing to do than the kingdom and church and writing songs that help point people to Jesus? It kind of makes sense.
And I still find myself in places like you were talking about, like I'm so, like, there's opportunities to do this and that and whatever, and I love jumping around and doing other things, but I always have to make sure, like, and it doesn't always happen straight away, but I have to bring myself back to the why and what I do and what I feel like I'm actually meant to be doing. What am I good at? And I love those moments when I'm writing where I'm like, oh, I'm actually okay at this, like, because it's easy to forget that you're not too bad at it. And so it's nice little payoffs to be reminded, like, okay, I know a good song from a bad song, which is a massive part of songwriting. I reckon that's the whole thing, is knowing what's a good idea, what's a bad idea. Is this melody good or not? And that's why it's good to write with other people, because you find those things. But I think staying committed is helpful.
Which I imagine, now that you've been doing it for a long time, it doesn't necessarily get easier.
It gets harder.
Right.
Especially now there's so many good songwriters within our crew, and it's only going to get more and more as time goes on. And I think, like, God and his grace and his sovereignty, he lets the right people rise up, people with the right motives and stuff, because there's people, obviously there's a platform here where your song can be heard, but maybe not for everyone that's their platform. And I believe if you're a songwriter, God wants you using these songs. I do think there's songs written in your bedroom that are always between you and God, but I also think, like, art's to be heard, art's to be seen. But I know, like, within our crew, there's a lot of people who are actually great songwriters. So it's a narrower door almost to actually bring a good song and have it come through, if that makes sense. So for me now, I'm not just bringing whatever and it's going to be, we'll do it in the like, I feel like I'd bring a half kind of caked idea back in the day. And we'd be like, okay, we need something. So then we'd take it in the studio, then we'd make it great. Whereas now it's like great songs are being brought to the table. And that's what we're going to do, because we don't want to waste time in the studio. So it puts pressure on you as a songwriter. But it's awesome.
So then what would you say to the aspiring songwriter? You know, obviously they're hearing this, they're going, okay, I need to commit to it. I need to believe that I'm meant to do it, like under God. Now what?
Yeah.
I'm writing songs. I'm in my bedroom. No one's hearing him. What do I do?
I mean, I was talking about 8-track before. These days you've got so many ways to write and record. It's stupid. Like I wish when I was 16, I could have had the same opportunity, but maybe now it's so easy that it's the hard work doesn't need to be put in. I don't know.
Okay.
So I would just, obviously don't let it be to the sacrifice of other things in your life that probably matter. If you're going to school and your parents are paying for that, that's my regret. Right. They were paying for me to go to a good school, and thanks to them, they didn't deter me from chasing my dreams. But if I could have realized what they were spending on my education, I probably would have done things a little bit different. But I would say spend time on it, like you just said. Chase after your dream. We talked about this before about running in your lane.
Yeah.
I think what is your lane? Obviously, like, you got to trust God as someone who believes in God's calling upon our lives and purpose. He's going to open the doors. So, and you might have been writing for 10 years and you're like, well, he hasn't opened a door yet. I mean, I can only say stick at it, but I do believe if your heart's right and you're really living in God's call in your life, he's going to open those doors up. And that might be you writing with someone or getting an opportunity to write with someone, or you're at church and they want to do a new song and you've brought this new song. And I think that's important. I think we're blessed here to write songs that work for our church and a lot of other churches. But there's a lot of amazing churches out there writing their own music because it's for what they're doing in their church and it's their mission, and we're at the same mission obviously, but you know, it's like we write a song that's really around a message that we're focusing on here at church at the moment. And so I think those are opportunities that you might find in your church, or you might just want to write pop music or something. I don't know. I just think work hard, believe that God's going to open the doors and have that kind of youthful, risky confidence because that's what I felt like got me to the place that I am at now. It's just trusting God and stepping into every opportunity.
I love that. You talk a lot about, like, if we're ever talking about music or whatnot, say, what are you listening to? What are you doing lately? Or even a minute ago, you referenced Chili Peppers. Yeah. You mentioned to me yesterday you were listening to Wolfmother.
Yeah, so random.
And I wonder, I think for some people listening, that might be a bit confronting.
Yeah, not Christian music.
Right? So how do you see that?
I don't know. I didn't grow up thinking I was going to do Christian music. What I did love about church is it's worship. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And obviously we have music now that's on radio stations here and there, but for me it's ultimately still songs we're going to do at church, and they're worship songs. And so that's what drew me to it, because I remember my parents would buy me albums, and I mean I couldn't even tell you what albums they were, but they'd buy me albums from this bookstore, Kurong, which is like, they're amazing. But I was young and all I cared about was Blink-182 and all these other bands. So I was like, I'm not listening to that. Right. But it's just funny how God flips everything on your head. So he drew me towards worship. Yeah. But in regards to what I listen to, and I still listen to, there's a lot of music that's not necessarily Christian. I don't know. I get inspired by people's creativity, and I guess people, not that there's not amazing, crazy, creative people within our world. There is. But for me, it's just looking beyond just our horizons, and I believe all creativity is from God. Whether we use that to glorify God or not, that's a different story. Yeah, I think like people probably listen to me now saying, okay, those bands have swearing in it or whatever, or they talk about this or that. I'm actually the worst with lyrics. I don't hear a single lyric. I hear melody. Okay. Whereas my wife will get in the car and she'll know every lyric to a song. I'm like, how do you know these lyrics? Yeah. Like nothing sticks in my head lyrically. It's always melody. So it's almost like I don't even hear lyrics. I just hear melody. Right. But I don't know. I just am more attracted to. I also like again, you said what are you listening to right now? I couldn't tell you. I'm listening to like 10 different things. Right. Just trying to find something that grabs me. I don't know the answer to that. Is it because your headspace is sort of in the creative zone, if that makes sense? So you're thinking about writing, thinking about melody, for example, and therefore when you listen to something, it kind of triggers thoughts. So it's not necessarily, you're not intently listening to the lyric or whatever. You might be more thinking about melody or style or genre even. Yeah, it's, to me, and maybe it's a drama thing. Like I always try to find something about rhythm. like, okay, that's got a lot of energy, and it's what will drive a melody for me.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to find songs that I'm going to rip off. I'm just going to find songs that inspire me. So I might even just like, if I'm writing and I'm listening to something, I'm like, that's awesome. So then I'll just lay a beat that's similar to it.
Right.
But that beat's going to change. Like, it's going to get tweaked. It's as well as the song moves on, we're like, okay, we need to take that out. We need to take that out. So it becomes a whole different thing. But it's just being inspired. There's something about life that people somehow transfer into art. And sometimes as Christians, I think we've gotten a lot better at it, but we can act like everything's all good. But it's not. I mean, As You Find Me, we just put that song out. That song's about a journey that, especially talking about Jolie, like he's gone through this journey, but actually is reflective of most of us.
Yeah.
All of us.
Yeah, yeah.
Being real. It's about our testimony. It's about what we've lived through. So,
yeah, right.
And it seems to resonate with people.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Is it seems the best art is where someone's being honest.
Yeah.
They're bringing their craft to an experience or to their sort of their honest life journey, if that makes sense, and expressing it through some sort of art, through their craft. So it might be a song or painting, as you said, and then that seems to be what resonates. Yeah. That song, As You Find Me, so it's from the new album. It seems like these new songs are a real honest reflection of where Joel's been and perhaps is it where you've all been as writers?
Yeah. I mean, is it the 20th year? I think that's what we're saying. It's 20 years since United started, and I've been involved for a lot of that. Obviously, someone like Joel, even Ruben, was involved from the very start. I think he had pretty much was the guy who took the whole
Kicked
thing,
it off.
kicked it off. And 20 years is like, it's not a long time, but it is a long time. And so you get to a point where you're like, well, if we're going to keep doing this, like, we need to explore new avenues, I guess. But for us, it's just like, we want to be real with like where we're at and who we are. And I think that resonates with people again, and bringing humanity into it. And that allows our weakness, God's strength. I think that's what God is using within our sphere with what we do. And then there's also room for those songs that are just completely God glorifying, which I love. That's what I love about here at Hillsong Church. There's actually so many creative licenses within what we do. So United, we can really kind of explore these themes of life and who we are and what we go through, point it back towards Jesus. And then we've got also these ways of just writing these songs that are anthemic and they're just straight directed at God and God, you are so good. And we're singing them, and a lot of people kind of who wouldn't be in our world, don't go to a church, they'll be like, well, I'm not going to listen to that. Like, that does nothing for me. But then when they actually get connected to the heart of God, it also resonates with them. And like, there's nothing better than being in a room with however many people you're with, and you're all singing the one thing that's directed at God, and it's just, you can feel the presence of God.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's fun. Imagine, at least, I'm not, obviously not a writer, but I imagine it's fun when you express something so dear to you and then you sing it with, in church with a bunch of people you may or may not know, and it resonates with them too. Yeah,
it's like, it never gets old. Like, I remember Fire Fall Down. That was a song I was singing in my bedroom for months, and my parents had to put up with me singing it late at night. They remember hearing it every night. But then the first time we did it, like that experience of like, wow, like people are singing this and they love it. And you don't want it to become about you, but it's like, wow, like that's amazing. Actually is like a really good feeling.
Yeah.
And so that never gets old, but it's a bit more, there's like this real mission behind it.
Right.
Like, I feel like this is what I'm here to do. And so we're specifically thinking through, what should we be singing at church? What does God want to sing about? What I'm singing about that's going to have an impact on people's lives, or what's he trying to get across to people at the moment. And he can do that in so many different ways. And he chooses song as one of those ways that really resonates with people.
Yeah. So you mentioned it's like 20 years of United, and there's a new album coming out, and you're going to be doing like massive tour, world tour this year.
Yeah.
Well,
the USA.
World tour of the USA.
Yeah, I think there's more world happening as time goes on.
Okay. Well, my question was going to be so there's lots going on, lots of activity.
Yeah.
What really where's Matt Crocker in your sort of future? Where do you see yourself, and what excites you about what's coming up?
Just more opportunities to keep writing. I think that's always there within our circle of life, but I just love, like, I'm going over to the OC in 2 weeks. Those are my favorite trips, when I get to go over and there's space to just write and record. And I think all the songs will be written before we get there, but then fleshing them out and recording them and spending time with like-minded people we've done it for years with each other. We've been writing and recording and stuff. And it's like a family outside of my family, but that stuff excites me. Tour is going to be a lot of fun. We're doing, I think, 30 different things in the States, and we haven't properly done that for a couple of years. I've got a family now. That excites me. I think I'm a bit more content than I used to be. I'm actually happy with, I don't have to be this person who's whoever, like, got a name for himself. I'm actually quite content with just being a part of the fabric, and God's using me. So, and there's still moments within that are tough, and there's moments within that that are actually really satisfying.
Yeah. Hey, well, thanks. I feel like we should wrap it up. I've kept you so long. But I'm really excited about, I guess I'm one of the people who gets to, sit in church and sing the songs that you write. And so I'm grateful for your journey, grateful that you're stuck at it over the years when it's been, the highs and lows of life. And I'm grateful that God's, I guess, put this confidence in you that you are a songwriter and that you're writing songs for the church, because it's paying off. And I feel like it's really awesome to see the fruit of your labor, and that we get to be a benefit of it. So thanks for the podcast. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
We'll chat soon.
Awesome.
I think it's really interesting that the takeaway from Callie's episode last week from Bethel was that we need to get started. But then this week with Matt, he's talking about how continuing is really important. We go through highs and lows as creatives. Sometimes we're just flowing and stuff is coming out and it's just, we're producing a lot. And then other times it's just hard work. It seems like we've got a blank page and we don't know what to put on it. But the scripture encourages us to not grow weary in doing good, and in this case, the doing good is the craft, is the grind, is getting it done and presenting our best efforts really before the Lord and allowing Him to do what He would want to do with that. So my encouragement is continue on, don't grow weary, you got this, you can do it, and who knows how God might use that next thing that you create. That brings us to the end of season 5. We've had a fantastic season with some great episodes, but for us here in Sydney, we're about to start Hillsong Conference, and so we're going to take a short break so we can get on with doing that. I know many of you are coming to Hillsong Conference as delegates or volunteers, so please come and say hi in one of our creative masterclasses. And make sure you subscribe too, because we're going to be back in just a few short weeks. There may or may not be some bonus episodes along the way. So I'll see a bunch of you at Hillsong Conference, and for the rest of you, see you in season 6.